How to create a better future is the guiding question in today's episode of the Pandemic Podcast with me, Dan Astin-Gregory. If you saw my episode yesterday, I went on somewhat of a tirade as I answered the question, what could the next 12 months look like, where I unpacked some of the trends that we'd witnessed unfolding in the last 18 months during the course of the pandemic response, but also exploring some of the wider trends that can be observed politically, technologically, economically, socially, culturally, and how some of these have intersected over the course of the pandemic response and how they've played out and magnified over this period of time, to then really lay out what the next 12 months and beyond could look like, and shared some ideas around how that can have much more of a positive ending. And it got me thinking today about the idea around how we can go about creating a better future. And inspired by a conversation with a very dear friend of mine who spoke to me about some of the content I've been creating recently and some of the concepts of the idea of this notion of a summer of freedom. And he reminded me of a very important principle that I'm going to share with you in this conversation. But he lives down on the south coast of England in a beautiful spot. And he sent me a video of himself and some of his friends on the beach, having a great time with, fire poi and all this sort of stuff, music playing, drums being like a drum circle type experience, and having given my kind of overview of the kind of summer of love in the 1960s, how people came together to collectively, effectively raise the vibration in creating love and peaceful energy. He shared that as an example of living it now. And, he called me out. He said, Dan, you talk about the summer of love, but you're so busy trying to change the world that you're not actually living in the world that you want to change. You're not being the change that you say you want to do. And it's a very fair criticism on the basis, or fair feedback, on the basis that video that he showed me is living that moment. It's not just talking about living in that peaceful, loving, joyful existence. He is there with his friends on the beach, in the moment, in the now, living freely, living with grace, living with love, living with passion. And, I do live with love, grace, and passion, I do hope. But the point is, how do we create a better future? Well, the future itself is a projection in our mind's eye about what the world could look like as it unfolds. And our perception, our projection of that can often be informed by the sources that we consume. Now, if you're like me, throughout this last 12, 18 months, you've probably been researching all of the issues surrounding the virus, the lockdowns, the vaccines, the vaccine passports, and all of these different things that we've witnessed. You're looking at the data, looking at the science, critiquing all of the things that we've witnessed. It becomes beyond hobby-like activity, trying to make sense of the world, to almost a full-time, certainly in my case, it really has become a full-time endeavor to deliver this pandemic podcast with the support of my team. But it takes us on a journey to really explore the problems. And as we do that, if we spend all of our time in the problem space, what starts to happen is our state of mind enters into, it certainly has done for me, a state of doom and gloom, because it ain't pretty. And a lot of the people out there now, like I did yesterday, are connecting the dots between what's gone before us to project forward what that could look like if it continues to play out. And some of those things that have been projected to play out have played out and are playing out. For instance, the vaccine passports, they're not in force here yet fully or across the UK, not certainly as they were initially proposed, but we have seen them in other countries like France, where the police are literally walking from cafe to cafe, checking people's credentials to make sure that they've been fully vaccinated or tested negative in order to sit there at the cafe. Now, that is a present reality. That becomes a present reality. In the UK, I'm going to an event at the weekend that has these protocols in place. So it is on our own doorstep. Doorstep. I'm thinking, stop these things, and it's just getting magnified. So this does become a reality. But when you start to then expand upon where that then could go, it can take us into dark corners. And there certainly is lots of speculation on the web, through videos, through exploration, looking at these darker corners of where things could evolve. But it's really important that we catch ourselves in how it affects our mental and emotional state, because our perception becomes our reality, and our projections also become our future. So ultimately, the way to create a better future is to start imagining a better future, start projecting a better future, not to ignore the problems that we face, not to ignore the issues. Absolutely not, because those issues give us signposts in order to course correct and create solutions. But if we stay in the problem space, we stay in the issue space, then it takes us into the energy of the problem. And I know certain people out there right now, who have reached out to me saying, I just feel at the end of my tether, it feels so bleak, it feels so dark. And I asked them, what kind of material are you consuming? And it's all of the bad news. It's all what my friends in the personal development space called CNN. They say CNN, the television station, constant negative news, right? If we immerse ourselves in a world of constant negative news, our mind gets filled with negativity. So firstly, whilst it's important, yes, to investigate these issues, but to do so from a place where your feet are firmly on the ground, rationally grounded, in conscious awareness, because we can start to connect the dots between things that perhaps the dots don't connect. But even if they do connect, it's down to us to start to look at things as they are, not worse than they are, but then to start to see them better than they are, i.e. start to see what we want to create in the world, to see the change you want to create, to see the life that you want to live, to see the future you want to be part of, and then start to make that your dominant focus. But then once you start to see that vision for the future, for your own life, the society you live in, the planet, the culture that we live within, then start today to make it real. Because again, what's gone before us is just a memory, a reflection of the past, and what we're seeing forward is a projection in our minds of what the future could look like. But we live in the now. And going full circle to the comment about my friend who said, I'm living the summer of freedom. He is. He's there on the beach living in joy, peace and love. He's living it. And in living it every single day, we create a ripple effect that becomes a wave. So the way to create a better future is to live it right now, because this is all we have. The present moment is everything. Everything else is a figment of our imagination or a component of our reflection, of our memory. So the opportunity for us to create a better future, yes, to picture forward the world you want to see and create. But then the way to create it is to live it now. The moment to moment that we live in is all we have. So live in the now. That's all I have for you tonight. I'm in a bit of a hurry. I'm on my way out tonight. My wife and I have a date night. So I'm going to say peace and love to you all. I hope that little soundbite, very short for me. Normally I go for 45 minutes to an hour. So enduring message. The best way to create the better future is to live it now. Create your mind's eye vision for the world you want to see, and then live it now. All right, I'll be back again tomorrow. Look forward to seeing you again here on the Pandemic Podcast. Please do subscribe. Go to danjgregory.com/pandemic. Join our mailing list. We are taking part in a major campaign right now, the Together campaign. If you haven't seen the hashtags all over social media today, join our mailing list to figure out what's going on and how you can take part. danjgregory.com/pandemic. I'm off to have a date night with my wife. I'll see you again tomorrow. Peace and love.